In the words of Archbishop Tutu, everybody thought we would go up in flames, but we did not. I have in the studio with me a friend of the Mandela family, but more importantly, a social activist and a political activist from a very early stage in his life. Sipho Hotstix Mabuse, whose nickname Hotstix was in fact given to him because of his brilliant ability to play drums very early in his life. Thank you for joining us here this morning.
Thank you.
I remember you telling stories about how in 1976 you and some of your friends making your way through Soweto to fight apartheid, but also to fight some of the laws around the Afrikaans language. This must be an emotional time for you.
Yeah, indeed, it was. But ours was, long before 1976, because I belong to a generation of younger, dynamic, aggressive, bold members of the resistance movement. People like Tokyo, Spiwe, Grappies, all the guys in Dube and so. So those guys had already been involved long before the 1976 eruption. However, yes, because I was, they had already left the country, but I was in Soweto at that time. And when that happened, well, I was in the middle of everything that was going on. And for me, it was very important that, there was that continuity. And we knew at the back of our minds that somewhere there are those languishing in jail, and if we are not carrying this forward, then their imprisonment would have been in vain. And it was important that 1976 erupted. And it's a very emotional moment for us. Frankly, I do believe everybody would have wanted to hold on to Madiba for a lifetime.
Yes.
And yes, we are saddened, but we also want to feel that, we can celebrate him and the other comrades that
Sipho, your home, where you live, where you've lived in Soweto for so many years, one of the stalwarts who've refused to leave Soweto for the suburbs, is not very far from Vilakazi Street.
Yes.
When Madiba first came home, where were you?
When he came to Soweto, when he came to Soweto, obviously I think he had stayed in Bishop's Court for a few days, and then he went on to stay in Sandton for another few days. But when he eventually went to Vilakazi Street, then I went to the house, and the first person to see me was Zwelakhe, and he invited me to come into the house. Madiba saw me, and there was just hearty laugh about him, and he actually called me Shikisha, and gave me such a big hug. I held on to him. I did not want to leave for a while. And he was this towering man, and he would look at you like this, and very good, very good, very good, and he said, thank you, your music raised our spirits when sometimes things were down for us. And I thought that was a poignant moment, which I cherished for a while.
Sipho, you together with the Mandela family who stayed in Soweto, Winnie Mandela, Zinzi, and so on, you went on to become almost preservators of the ANC culture and the legacy of Soweto, of Mandela in Soweto.
Well, I mean, I grew up in Soweto, and it's particularly Orlando West. Orlando West was the bedrock of political activism, very robust. The high, if you could say, the high command of Soweto, of the ANC came from there, because Tata was in Orlando West, Babu Sisulu was in Orlando West, Dumanoko was in Orlando West, so you had everybody there. So naturally, all the children around that area were influenced by those politics. So Mama Winnie was able to sustain that influence for a very long time because Tato was in prison, and she kept that flame, alive for a very long time. And our role as people was to play that supportive role. But in essence, I think the Mandela family was very strong in that, including the Sisulu family. They were in the forefront. I mean, I remember Zwelake. Zwelake had been imprisoned for a number of times. And well, maybe I should reveal, as an underground operative, he was the only person that I could trust. Between him and Zinzi were the only people that I could relate information and letters and all the other things that I, got involved in. So that environment was quite strong for us. And it was important because we had, again, I was also one of the very privileged young people during the past campaigns. I saw my parents, I saw Tata Mandela, I saw all the other parents around there burning their passes. So I was at an impressionable age to understand what the ANC was all about.
Tell me a little bit about your becoming a musician and the decision that, because there's one thing going into the arts, it's another thing deciding that music needed to have the social message.
Well, when I started, frankly, music was merely as an outlet, self-expression. I became a musician by default. I had not gone out to become a musician. For some reason, fate dictated that I'll become a musician because I wanted to be an academic. And many of us around the area wanted to be academics. I know many of the guys that I grew up with went on to become others, lawyers, doctors. Some of them are in leadership and so on, because all of us believed that education was the only way that was going to create a liberated environment in our own space. And somewhat I ended up becoming a musician. But the advantage with the little education that we had, we understood that the arts have an enormous role to play in how it influences thinking and the environment.
Sipho Hotstix Mabuse, a renowned South African artist who, during the time of apartheid, made many songs, became very popular in both the black and white circles within music as well as the public. What was interesting was most of the songs that he was performing, in fact, had political connotations, had a message in it of activism and protest, and little did we know it was right there encouraging us and urging us on to stand up to the regime at the time. Mandela, of course, inspired this while he was in prison, and we have one of those songs now. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you.